Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? There you go. Dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. We broadcast 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And that's when we're live. Tape delayed all over the country and throughout the world. If you'd like to call us when we're live, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, 605-477-3249. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's at the front of the class today. Welcome, Rick.
I'm by the skin of my skin.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Skype has their upgrades, and they just are so inconvenient. They come right when you're trying to get a call. Oh, we got to upgrade you first.
Yeah,
Welcome to
I'm glad you mentioned Skype. Skype has upgraded so many times. I am unable to use it anymore on any of my PCs because the operating systems that I employ from Microsoft are not supported. So Skype will not work with the operating system.
That's done with intent. Yeah, that's done with
absolutely.
intent.
Yeah, because Microsoft owns Skype, okay? And they will not allow me to use the version of Windows that I use on some of our PCs. They will not allow me to connect via their Skype, which used to work great before they improved it to the point where it won't work anymore. And
that's why they call them thugs.
Yeah.
That's what a thug is.
Yeah. So, we think that when we buy software, we own it. No, we don't own it. And they can force us to upgrade so that our computers won't work anymore. And as I've said many times over the years, that the reason that so many people had to upgrade their computers so often back in the 1990s, that entire decade, was because Microsoft would release an operating system that was full of bugs, problems, errors, mistakes, maybe intentional, some of them maybe not, and they would release the software, you would install it, and it would work, and then things wouldn't work. So then you'd have to upgrade and get a new version of the software, and you'd install that, and you go, gosh, my PC really runs slow now. What happened to my PC? Well, it was the operating system that slowed it down. And back when we had MS-DOS, which was a pretty good program, MS-DOS 5, absolutely rock-solid, stable operating system, the hard drives lasted a really long time. You didn't see the hard drive failures that you see with Windows. Windows beats up the hard drives. So the operating system MS-DOS 5.0 worked great over and over, and we had very few problems. But as soon as Windows came out, this easy-to-use point-and-click stuff, we had all kinds of problems.
Have you noticed the amount of cooties that one gets just 1 hour on the internet today compared to 5 years ago? Right. I remember when the World Wide Web first started in 1990, and I was already on the internet. I was working out of IES in the Well. IES was out of Humboldt. They started teaching online using bulletin boards, and that was the old schools before they started this nonsense. And what I'm going to say to everybody is, Basically, my preferred platform, which I'm not using right now, unfortunately, is Linux. And Linux doesn't need upgrades. Your Windows equivalent, your Words, your database, your Excel spreadsheets, all have analogs that do not need upgrades or the requirements of a newer platform as Microsoft changes like Mopar. And it's the same marketing techniques. And once you say it, now you know why we're down on Microsoft, because it isn't about service.
I bought a computer on the internet, and I couldn't believe it. We wanted another computer for the garage, or the automotive shop that we have here at our house, so that instead of coming into the kitchen and looking things up with our greasy fingers, we could use a computer out in the garage shop, if you will. Let's say we're working on something and we need specifications. We could look them up. Well, I found a computer, a Dell computer, on eBay, and it was up for auction, and it was $2.50, something. I was really, I'm not exaggerating. And so I think I bid maybe $10 for it, and it was an older computer. It's a Dell Optiplex 755, and the final winning bid was ours at $5.50. And it was about $17 or $18 shipping. I have the computer here. I tried to load Windows XP. I can't get it to run. No matter what I do, Windows XP wouldn't run or load. So all kinds of errors. I put in a copy of Zorin, Zorin Linux. Loads right away. Perfectly. So there you have it. And I'm using, right now in front of me, I have multiple screens on multiple computers, and the one that tracks my connection to the network, meaning Genesis Communications Network, is Linux. And I know for almost a fact that every time I boot the computers, I know the Linux computer is going to come up, no problems. I don't know that about Microsoft computers, meaning Microsoft operating system, on the same computers. So I have several Dell Optiplex. I bought them all used right here in the studio, multiple screens. Some are Linux, some are Windows-based. The Linux ones I know don't give me any problems whatsoever. None. And you don't have to do some things with Linux that you have to do with Windows. For example, you don't have to do a disk cleanup. You don't have to do a defrag. It doesn't need it. It does need it. And in terms of antivirus software, it doesn't seem like Linux needs antivirus software either. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having a computer that doesn't have the blue screens, doesn't lock up, just works? Can you imagine? That's the way it used to be, right? Before, as you said, the cooties. And there are so many cooties, as you said. If I go to do a search for something, I get all kinds of advertisements everywhere I go for the kind of thing that I just searched for a few minutes ago. I don't like it.
So would you like to talk?
That's like the Googles.
Yeah, let's shift over to California and what's really going on down in California right now. This is I have got absolute, irrefutable proof, absolute, that there are a new kind of weapon being used. It's being deployed. You can see it from space. There was the bunker I have actually has infrared as one of the services that offers me tomography, and you can see the explosions from space. You can see the infrared heat patterns of the different kinds of lasers that are being used, and there were at least 3 different laser strikes that were documented by the military. Now, I don't know if it's the military doing this, it's a terrorist group, or it is something even weirder. I don't know. What I do know is it's not real. When you look at the devastation from these fires, and you look at the selectivity of what is devastated and what is not, we have a new weapon. And Houston, we have ignition. And something else is going on, and they're experimenting in California, in Southern California right now, and there's a body count just like 9/11. And my strongest recommendation is that no matter what political or religious belief that you have, if we ever get to the bottom of this, that amounts to a death sentence. And I mean war crimes against humanity. And I can tell you it's all wrong. You know, that New York, you talk to a fireman in New York, and they're still bitter about 9/11 and their attempt to try to save people in an environment that was meant to create a body count. And it's, the older generations just believe it. I'm watching the way CNN and Fox are aligning themselves with different than ABC and CBS. I am noticing that we no longer have Democrats or Republicans. What we have are globalists and nationalists. And I'm watching how England is, with the BRICS things, removal from the European theater. There's something else going on here that is not being discussed by media. My big question is, why is that? Well, why? What are they trying to do? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is Agenda 21. That's an Obama thing. And then if his wife tries to run for office, and that seems to be what's positioning now. They're already starting to line up with candidates, for this run against Trump. Do I like Trump? No. Do I care much about? He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer in terms of oratory. He's not a very good speaker, and the way he does talk is it's not as articulate as, let's say, Jimmy Carter, that would use words like deplorable. I have a concern about what's happening in America, and as such, I'm buying more bullets.
Yeah, we should all be buying more bullets. And the powder and the cases and the primers to go with them, and the firearms to launch them. My house right now has ammonia and bombs in every room. We'll be right back. There's a lot of posts on the internet that you can read this quote where David Rockefeller said to the Bilderberg Group in 1991, quote, and this is from collective-evolution.com, but there are many sites. Quote, we're grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in the past centuries. End quote, David Rockefeller. So you're right. You're right. There's a group of people, not necessarily Republicans, not necessarily Democrats, but the elite who feel that they know more, and they want more, and they demand more, and they want more power over everybody else. And that is an excerpt of the speech from David Rockefeller's 1991 appearance at the Bilderberg meeting. So you're absolutely right. And if you look at what's happening in weaponry. I mean, the United States is trying every way it can to develop more weapons, more horrible weapons, sound weapons, microwave weapons, light-based weapons, biological weapons, and then, of course, the explosive weapons. It's unbelievable. And the problem is, there's no place for us to go. We can't get off this planet. I don't believe we went to the moon, got off, walked around, came back home, landed and splashed in the ocean. I don't believe it. You know, I believe we had some splashdowns in the ocean. I believe we launched some rockets, but I don't believe we put 3 guys on top of a rocket, landed on the circled the moon, landed on the moon, got off, walked around, got back in the capsule, blasted off and came home and splashed in the ocean. I don't believe we did all of those things serially. I don't believe it. There are a lot of reasons why I don't believe it. But suffice it to say, we are interested in domination. We are interested in beating up little countries all over the world. We're interested in stealing whatever they have, taking it from the little people. And that's exactly what the government is doing, government corporation is doing to us. They are demanding that we pay them part of everything that we earn. They want it. And they use it to control us. They use it to control the educational system. That's kind of like a misnomer, educational system. The lack of educational system. Our children are getting dumber by the second. So I have a lot of concerns about where we're headed. I believe that Washington is a swamp. I believe that we cannot drain the swamp by reelecting the same alligators. And that's what we keep doing. And we have people paraded in front of us like Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters. She can hardly formulate a sentence. Nancy Pelosi, who has what appears to be some kind of a cognitive disorder. It's really a shame. We don't have statesmen. We don't have intellectuals. What we have is a collection of individuals at the top who have made money from a lot of people. You can make a lot of money by stealing a little bit from everybody. You can do that. And that's what I believe they've done. Like Standard Oil. Like the railroads. Like the telephone companies. You can get in bed with the regulators, and then you can force everybody to give you a little bit of money. And then you have an enormous amount of money at the end. Think about it. Think about the companies that make money. They've got a lot of little people paying them. Like Verizon, Microsoft, telephone network companies, cable companies, satellite TV companies. We'll be right back. Plus, depending on when you're listening to this broadcast, it's tape delayed throughout the country and the world. But there was a bottom-of-the-hour news piece talking about how Donald Trump has called the media, the news media, the enemy of the people. And there was some outrage about him saying that. Well, I've got to tell you, I just read, before that news piece, I just read David Rockefeller's speech, an excerpt of his speech to the Bilderberg Group, thanking the media. Now, that would be the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Time Magazine, and others for their silence about the plans of the elite takeover of the world. Now, if that doesn't jive with Donald Trump calling the mainstream media the enemy of the people, I don't know what does. And if you think that the behavior of a CNN White House press corps person, Acosta, was reasonable, I can't believe it. The guy has disrespected the office of the president. Now, even if Barry Soetoro were the CEO of USA Corporation, I'm talking about Obama, I still would feel the same way about disrespecting the office. Now, I certainly don't like Barry Soetoro. I don't respect him as an individual at all. However, the office of the president should be respected. And for the news media to say that it's unconstitutional for us to kick out Acosta for his behavior from the White House, it's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, if the media that's been lying to us for years demands that they reinstate Acosta, if I were Donald Trump, I would say, I'll tell you what, guys, you can all come. We're not going to have any more White House press corps passes. We're going to do away with that. What we'll do is we'll meet outside. I'll come see you guys every once in a while, and you can wait outside. Now, unfortunately, with the economy being the way it is, we're not going to be able to have a building for you to be in. We'll just meet outside. If it's raining, bring your own umbrellas. If it's freezing cold, snowing, sleeting, make sure you're prepared for the weather. And, sometimes I'll come out and talk to you, tell you what's happening. That would be my response. There's no requirement that I know of that we allow the press into the White House to be abusive, offensive, rude, impolite. There's no need for that. Those guys are making the United States of America look like a laughingstock. Where is the decorum? Who forgot to raise these White House correspondents? Dr. Richard Allen Miller, do you have any comments? Did we lose Rick?
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was daydreaming. Well, you know how I'm feeling about all of this. I wished there was a way we could formally announce our displeasure and disagreements to such things as CNN. How do you boycott media? Well, one thing is, whom are advertising with them? Let's start with that and start a list of products that we're going to no longer frequent because they are being supported and supporting CNN and Fox News. I remember when CNN was the alternative new guy on the block, and CBS had Walter Cronkite and then Dan Rather, and when Dan Rather retired, that's when CNN came in and Fox News. Before that, both were considered more specialized. Please understand that all of these are owned by individuals, not corporations, that have a tremendous amount of money. And so these are no longer tools, they're weapons. And that is the problem that we have with the haves and have-nots. And I am at the low end of the totem pole. I'm way down there in the Lodi-toed hippie, just barely struggling to make my life, comfortable. I want a roof over my head and I want food in the refrigerator. And all of that is about to cease shortly because of the weather wars. And that is a weather war. That is a weapon. It is affecting our crops. It is, I don't know if anybody has even noticed, but everything in the grocery store has increased in price now. Everything. Butter, bread, all of it. And gasoline. It's a weapon. And I don't know what to do as an individual. I'm an intellectual, so I try to approach it with, morals rather than ethics and walk my talk. I wish there was a way I could be more formal in my protesting of CNN and the fact that Fox would jump on the bandwagon.
You can. And I'll tell you how you can. You asked for who advertises. Okay. The top 10 brands, according to TV Newser, TVNEWSER. Okay. www.adweek.com. Top 10 brands, according to them, on Fox News for February 2018. This is the latest information I have. Nutrisystem, Otzella, Otzela, if I'm pronouncing it properly. Jenny Craig, Sleep Number, Indeed, South Beach Diet, Smile Direct Club, Liberty Mutual, Geico, and Inogen, Inogen. Those are the top 10 brands advertising on Fox News. Okay, for the top 10 for CNN, Otzella, T-Mobile, Geico, Progressive Insurance, Humira, Humira, Nutrisystem, BMW, NordVPN, AT&T, and Good RX, good as in RX prescription. And for MSNBC, Smile Club, Smile Direct Club, Jeep, Proactive, Proactiv, Otzella, Office Depot, Cadillac, Trivago, Trivago, Sleep Number, Humira, Humira, and Omaha Steaks. Okay, so if you're wondering who you need to support and not support, those are the supporters of Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, February 2018. So they have some of it. So I'm not going to support any of those companies. You know, why should we? Why should we feed our hard-earned Federal Reserve unit dollars to them? I'm not going to. And I don't really watch TV. I don't really watch TV. I don't watch TV. I don't have over-the-air programming. I don't have satellite television, and I don't have over-the-air local television. I don't have it. Why would I want it? Rick, you're talking about the fires in California, and I have a post in front of me, dailymail.co.uk. Power line sparks blamed for California wildfires. Electric company stocks plummet as landowner claims it was investigating the fault before Camp Fire killed, and this is at the time of 42, while Malibu residents sue over strong evidence of a separate failure caused the Woolsey fire. So now we have evidence of two fires in California, the Camp's fire and the Woolsey fire, caused by electrical company failures. That's what I'm seeing. And Pacific Gas and Electric saw their shares drop 48% in the 2 days of trading since the Camp Fire began.
On Skype, I sent you two links, yep. By the way. I sent you two links on YouTube. There are two different things that's just on this computer. I've got better ones on Facebook, but they show explosions purposefully going off before the fires. They show blue laser lights being shot from helicopters and from the ground that are selectively targeting certain situations. You can see devastation in a community where all the trees are standing, and yet everything else, including automobiles, is down to slag. How does that work?
All right, let's talk about that for just a minute. Class, if you decide to do some research and you look up blue lasers, you can buy blue lasers on the internet. You can buy a handheld blue laser, like a laser pointer, like one might use in a classroom. Now, I think they're dangerous. I really do, because they can blind you. And I object to teachers having these pointers in their hand, and they have no idea that they're on, and they point them, and students look at them, and I mean, they're really dangerous. I wouldn't let my child go into a classroom where a teacher was so inept as to have a laser pointer. There's no need for it. We used to have a rubber-tipped stick around like a dowel rod with a rubber tip on it. The teacher used to use that and point. That's pretty safe. But not these red lasers or green lasers or blue lasers. But if you go to eBay, for example, and you look up lasers, you will see that they will take, there'll be an image at certain sites that will show you that literally you can start a fire. You can light a match from a distance. You can light a cigarette from a distance. You can light a piece of paper on fire from a distance with a laser that you can buy on the internet. Okay? Now, from a helicopter, I would imagine they would have a bigger power supply, more cooling, and a way bigger laser. Think about what Dr. Richard Allen Miller just said, combined with what I just said. Dr. Richard Allen Miller mentioned these lasers and how they can start fires. No question about it. No question about it. Class, if you want to see for yourself, just do some research and just go to your favorite search engine and type in laser, start fire. See what happens. You'll find out it's absolutely true. Rick?
I'm very concerned because I am believing that they are attacking California as a portion of the United States that has its own sovereignty, like Texas. And there was news ahead of time that this was part of an organized plan to enact Agenda 21. And I would suggest anarchy, absolutely resist. I would not allow any foreign military on our soil for any reason ever. And should it happen, we string Obama that made that happen up in public as a hanging. And I'm advocating that because it was him that got Agenda 21 through as our so-called president. Now, that's wrong. And the media is complicit. And that's because it's about money. Bad enough.
Let me see if I've got this right. You're not saying...
just a nerd. I'm no big deal.
Let me make sure I've got this right. You're not saying go out and get Obama and string him up. You're saying that if our country is destroyed as a result of Agenda 21, then you're saying that it would be reasonable to round him up? Is that what you're saying?
War crimes against humanity and the sovereignty of the United States. I don't know what I'm saying. Do you understand? I'm angry. I'm watching the smoke come up here in Oregon from what's going on in California. And we didn't even have a summer this year. The fires up in Canada came all the way down here into Oregon. The fires in California came all the way up from California, and we're still going. And you have snow today in your home, and California's on fire. How does that work with so-called geoengineering to orchestrate rain from global warming? Yeah, the whole thing is a bunch of hooey.
Let's talk about the four seasons, okay? We used to have four seasons here in Missouri when we first moved here. Last winter, we deleted spring. We went from winter, 2 weeks later we were in summer, okay? We went from summer, we deleted fall, and we went right into winter in 2 weeks. I'm not exaggerating. I was having this chat with our children. I'm looking out the studio window at 3 inches of snow. A couple days ago, we had a couple inches of snow. Our farm is blanketed with snow. We're feeding our cows hay. Normally, we'd go a little farther before we'd have to feed hay. The grass is green, but it's under snow. It's under snow. So the cows can't get to it until the snow melts. So we're feeding hay early, which is a real problem for us because we have maybe about a quarter of the hay we should have, maybe. So we had to sell 60% of our cows. And I was heartbroken at having to do that. And I looked at the statement. It just came in yesterday. One of our cows, I can't believe this. It breaks my heart. We sold a 1,000-pound cow at market for $50. A 1,000-pound cow went to market for $50. I've got tears in my eyes. Can you imagine? Let me say it again. 1,000-pound cow sold at market for $50 last week. Farmers are in trouble. The elite are gaining traction. The millennials think it's great. Good luck, millennials. Good luck when you lose the wealth of knowledge from the previous generations and you're on your own. Good luck, because you're going to need it. Rick, I'm looking at the headlines of DailyMail.com, and it shows Pierce Brosnan, the impersonator, the actor, and it says that he looks pained as he surveys the flame-damaged remains of his Malibu beach house after being forced to evacuate California wildfires. Yeah, his house was burned down. And it shows his wife, Keely Shane Smith, and they're standing by their truck. It looks like he has sneakers on, blue jeans, and a black T-shirt. She has some kind of a dress on, and you can't really see her except for her feet pretty much, and she's wearing flip-flops. Flip-flops drive me crazy. I just don't understand why people wear them. What's so hard about putting a pair of, lace-up sneakers on, shoes, boots? What's so hard about that? Wearing flip-flops. Going to the site of your demolished, burned-out, incinerated house wearing flip-flops. Does that make any sense at all? Not to me. It makes no sense. I would be wearing leather laced-up boots. I'd be expecting nails, splinters, pieces of metal, screws, all the things that are used in building a house, roofing materials. I mean, most roofs are put on with nails. Most. Let's say it's a steel roof, it's put on with nails or screws. I mean, really? Go to look at your house, sift through the rubble, flip-flops? Does that make any sense at all? So why would we follow the lead of these impersonators, these Hollywood impersonators? Obviously, she doesn't get it. Rick, any comments on that?
Well, yeah, I can. Lots of different ones. Pierce Brosnan is one of my heroes. He did a movie once called Nomads. Talked about subcultures of non-humans that were human-looking, that lived among us. He has secondary stuff like ants live within our community, like in our home and things like that. It was an interesting movie called Nomads. And it reminds me of what's going on in our culture right now with the different kinds of values that exist as important and primary. And I candidly have seen in the last 10 years, a systematic disassembly of our values and things that made America great. I don't even think we have a national, what is it, that debt concept of how much we export to how much we import. Used to be 10 to 1. Today, I can't even begin to tell you because we no longer have Craftsman or Snap-on. What we have is Harbor Freight. And it's a changing environment of globalism that allows a culture of different values to exist one to another. They call it a caste system in India. And for me, the so-called American dream is all of that. It's a hallucination. Doesn't exist. The harder you work does not necessarily mean the more you have. And so with those constructs, there is an awakening that's going on, people listening to people like me saying what I'm saying and kind of getting it in their own way, in their own manner. And I'm going to suggest that you start to run a tight ship in terms of what you support and why you buy what you do. We used to not think about those kinds of things, and I think it's time that you do. I remember the distinction between Walmart and Bi-Mart. Bi-Mart was owned locally, and Walmart was not. And that meant that all the labor, the only money that stayed in our community using Walmart was the labor. And even that was suspect. So with that said, cheapest is not necessarily best. Not even coming about quality or any of that. You get what you pay for. And so that's one of the reasons why I've always tried to have a mechanic that was my friend, not just someone that serviced my automobiles. Like my medical doctor. Someone that cared about me, cared about my family, and was over here for dinner several times a year. My friend. Surgeons don't even relate to that anymore. Medicine's broken. I'm now realizing that things like immunization, which used to be a choice and you did it to protect your children, is now putting your children in harm's way. That the agendas of what they're doing and why they're doing it used to be a voluntary thing. Now it's mandatory. How's that work? That is called the encroachment of civil rights. And I am here to tell you that I don't have an answer, except for myself. And there are certain things I won't do. I just won't do it. What are they going to do? They're going to beat me down? Probably.
Lead first.
Well, that's what Agenda 21 is about, jackboot. They're looking for an excuse to have a federal emergency that the National Guard can no longer address. I've watched TV like the Designated Survivor, where there are political parties, groups of individuals that band together. Let's talk about one in Springfield, Missouri. There is a good reverend with a mega church there that would imply that yoga positions are positions of the devil. Now, what is wrong with that thought? Well, let's start with judgment and value systems and why he would say such a thing in the first place. Fear is the first enemy of men. It is used to control the masses. Once you overcome your fear and you become more open to the possibilities that maybe this is not necessarily a bad thing happening, now you achieve a degree of personal power. And of course, power then becomes an enemy because the more you have, the more you want. It's like an addiction. And so the distinction between a tool and an addiction is a very fine layer of 200 shades of gray. And I'm going to say that that's what we need to do because it differs for each of us. And that's what we're trying to do, is become more self-aware. And what we do not want to do is make the same mistake twice.
You're talking about a church in Ozark, Missouri, Ozark, Missouri, called the James River Assembly of God. Is that correct?
But it's not called a charismatic. A charismatic has nothing to do with religion any more than Jim Jones.
Well, I have been to that church that you're referring to. It's called the James River Church, the Assembly of God Church. And it is huge. I made the mistake of going in the wrong door in the front. There's two doors in the front, main doors. It's like a 5-minute walk to the other door in the front. There are 3,500 seats in this church. I've been there. Not for praising the Lord. I don't do that there. My Lord is everywhere. I don't need to go to a man-made building to talk to my God. But this church building has 3,500 seats. Now, it's not like a typical church. These churches are not seats are not pews. They are movie theater seats. They're padded. They are fabric. And I wouldn't want to be the guy that has to dust those seats as a job. 3,500 seats. The James River Church pays its employees, on average, $75,375 a year. That's the average employee. The low guy makes about $47,000. The top guy makes $126,000, almost $127,000. That's derived from, base salary and bonuses and things like that. You have to apply to be a member, and they want your tax information to be a member of this church. They have multiple pastors. It's not like, a Catholic church where you have one priest and he says a bunch of masses. I believe the number, and when I last read it, was 5 associate pastors. This is a big praise the Lord operation. Can you imagine people making $75,000 and more at this church? Where does that come from? That comes from paysa.com, where they track companies and how much people earn in them. I believe, now I saw a card shop. So, for example, let's say you were inside there and you said, shoot, I need to send a birthday card to Tom. You can get that there. They have a gym there if you inside, if you want to do some exercising there. And I believe they have a McDonald's inside. I'm talking about a McDonald's hamburger joint inside the church. This is not just a church. This is a huge business that sells insurance. It's an insurance company selling insurance to get to heaven. Should you provide your tax information, attend regularly, say and do the right thing, and give the appropriate amount. Seriously. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and since we're talking about the James River Church, let me read this. This is from jamesriver.org. It is the James River Church Leadership Covenant. And I'll just read a few of the bullet points. But it says, as a leader in the James River Church family, in addition to my membership covenant, I commit myself to God and the body of Christ to be an example in the following areas. I agree to daily cultivate an intimate relationship with God through prayer, Bible study, and a lifestyle of worship. I agree to faithfully attend Sunday services. I agree to attend the Wednesday night prayer meeting faithfully. I agree to support all ministries of the church in word, attitude, and regular prayer. I agree to financially support James River Church by giving a 10% of my income, and by setting leadership example over and above giving. And that's missions, faith promise, building campaigns, offerings, etc. I agreed to abstain from the use of tobacco products, alcohol as a beverage, and from drugs except for medical purposes. I agreed to use social media with integrity. I understand that as a leader, I must be mindful of what I post and who I follow. I agree to give my loyalty and every effort to promote, and maintain the unity of the church in all matters, supporting the lead pastor and all church leadership. That's what they say about themselves.
I have a comment. You know, tithing, the original concept of tithing came from the Upanishads and the commitment to train the mind with 2 hours, 10% of your life, training the mind. That meant that you were spending 2.2 hours every day inside a closet somewhere or a special place that you might go to go internal and talk to yourself. That's where it originally came from, the 10%. Now, how this has morphed into money and incomes, I'm at a loss. I believe in tithing. I believe in supporting a system that you find useful. Churches are about fellowship. They group together a body of people that have a similar belief, and what they do is help you reinforce that. And you play baseball with these people, and you have meals with these people. And some of the nicest people I've ever met belong and lead various churches. When it becomes a cult is when it's based around a charismatic. And Tammy Baker is Exhibit A. And I draw some lines here in terms of the personal, nobody else's business, in terms of how I conduct my own life and try to do the right thing. And I make mistakes, and one of my tenets is trying not to make the same mistake twice. Good luck with that. It's a never-ending re-examination, going internal with oneself. It's not about money. Tithing is about commitment towards something. Now,
I'm looking at an image. I'm looking at an image at jamesriver.org. It's the website for the James River Church. And the page that I happen to be on is the /visit page. And it shows a stage. This is a stage. I'm talking about like a Broadway stage. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people on the front row with guitars. They've got their hands raised. They're playing the guitars. They're singing. And then behind them, there's the drums and the rest of the band. This is a show. This is a theatrical performance as part of their church. It's not the preacher just standing behind the podium making a message about being a good person and a story about how one was a good person. This is a performance. We'll be right back. Not to beat a dead horse, but just I want to give you a feel for how big this James River Church is. It's 198,000 square feet. 198,000 square feet. It's got a gymnasium. They have multiple sanctuaries, a cafe, meeting rooms, offices, children and youth facilities. The fitness center. 198,000 square feet. So if you take the typical 2,000 square foot home, it's like 100 of them. It's like 100 houses under roof. Praise the Lord. That's James River Church in Ozark, Missouri. And they say, over 14,000 weekly members. And my count, when I was there, I counted the seats and I came up with 3,500. Wikipedia says the sanctuary holds 3,400 seats. I don't think that's quite right. I think it's 3,500. I was there. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. If I'm off by 100 seats, okay. But I don't think so. That is an example of people who are really passionate. And I got to tell you, I live here in the Bible Belt, the buckle of the Bible Belt in Missouri, and there's so many people who claim to be Christians. And when someone says to me, I'm a Christian, he's a really good Christian, you can trust him. The first thing I do is hold on to my wallet. I do not exaggerate. I'm not kidding. So I bought a car from a guy, and in the living room was this huge TV set to Praise the Lord TV. Praise the Lord TV was running on their TV so they could, get more of this religion kinds of thing. And then the guy didn't want to talk to me and answer a couple questions I had about the car I just bought from him. Didn't want to answer the questions. Praise the Lord. I got to tell you, I'm really serious about when someone tells me he's a good Christian, you can trust him. You can buy insurance from him. You can buy a car from him. You can buy whatever from him. I don't want to do it. I'd rather buy from someone who doesn't say they're a Christian. Not that Christianity is bad. It's just that when someone uses it as an endorsement to their honesty and integrity, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I really don't. Rick, I wanted to mention something. You and I talked about this over the years, and I think it's pretty serious. I mentioned a long time ago that I was at our daughter's house, and she lives in a city, a big sprawling city. And I was helping her with her refrigerator, and I pulled out a refrigerator, and I said, well, let me show you about these condenser coils, and let me show you how you can clean these and make your refrigerator freezer combination work more efficiently. So she lives in a subdivision, a neighborhood, a development, if you will. The houses are probably 25 years old or thereabouts, and they're nice houses. And each house is probably on a half an acre or about. So it's not like they're jam-packed in there. And I was looking at these refrigerator coils underneath the refrigerator, and they had this black, sticky goo. Think of it like flour mixed with oil, but colored black. That's what was on these coils. And there's nothing in the house that would cause that. Not candles, not kerosene, not a kerosene heater. Nothing that would cause that. Not a fireplace that would smoke out. None of those things. But yet these refrigerator coils were covered with this black, gooey, oily, thick coating. Obviously from the air, because there's a fan that blows the air across these coils. And I said, wow, I've never seen this before. Certainly isn't happening in our house in the farm village in Missouri. We don't have that. I've never seen this before. So I decided to look up something. Now, here's what I think it is. I think it's brake pad dust. I think it's brake shoe dust. I think it is from the brake pads and the brake shoes of all the vehicles in the city. I think it's from the little micro particles that come off tires. As you use your tires on your vehicles to support the vehicle, and it takes you from point A to point B and back. Well, tires wear out. So where does that tread go? Obviously, it's worn out little bits at a time, little tiny particles at a time, and it goes into the air. Then I thought, okay, so how many tires do we use in the United States? The number of tires that we replace every year in the United States, now I'm talking about passenger cars, light trucks, and tractor trailers, those kinds of tires, 200 million of them a year. That's how many we replace. Then I thought, okay, so how many tires do we have, not being used? How many tires do we have just stacked around in piles here and there? Stockpiled. Used, no good tires. How many of them? 275 million. Then I thought, well, how much is that? Well, if we assume that the average width of a tire, now that's not if you stand a tire on its tread and you measure it vertically, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you lay a tire flat on its side and you measure vertically. How wide is that tire? And I'm assuming about 8 inches average. And that would be for the little puddle jumpers, small cars, the medium-sized cars, the larger cars, the light trucks, and the tractor trailers. I'm figuring about 8 inches, which I think is pretty close. So if you stood those tires side by side by side, not end to end, but just the 8 inches wide, and you stack them up, how long would that be? Well, 34,000 miles. The distance to the moon is 239,000 miles, roughly. So that's about 1/6 the distance to the moon of the tires that we have stockpiled here and there across the country. Roughly, from coast to coast in the United States is about 2,800 miles. These tires would be stacked on top of each other, 12 times the distance from California to the East Coast. That's a lot of tires. And we use almost that many per year. And we wear them out, and the part that we wear out, the tread, goes into the air, then it falls down, then it goes onto the ground, and it goes into the water, and we have these bits of plastic and tires and brake parts going into the air and the water, and the proof of it is I vacuumed it up from the air conditioning condenser coils on our daughter's refrigerator freezer. There was an article that I researched on the Daily Mail. Microplastic from tires and roads, which end up in the ocean, make up 89% of ultrafine particles found in the air around busy motorways. So if you're wondering what happens to your tires, cough up some of it, and you'll see. It's going into your lungs. It's going into the air. It's going into the water. It's going into the food. We're destroying ourselves with our own stupidity. Any comments, Rick?
You're a very creepy person, the way you look at things.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, well, you're dead on. We already have a problem with plastic. That was DuPont and Better Living through chemistry. Now, I have been there, done that. I have watched the full cycle where a grocery store is no longer going to carry this plastic. They're going to start using paper again, right? That was Safeway. That stopped when, probably about the first 6 months of their trying to do that. Didn't happen. People can carry more, lugging it with these plastics that will double line it, so you can carry more, heavier. The material, everything is overpackaged. And that's because of our just-in-time delivery systems where it came from Mars. Now, I'm going to say that we have a problem here because I saw a top-secret Navy document this last week that scared the bejesus out of me. When I say that, it says that December 12th, there is going to be a coronal mass ejection from the sun that's going to be approximately 10 times that of the Carrington event in the 1800s. If this is true, this is going to drop the world back into the Stone Age overnight next month. We all knew something was about to happen. We don't know what it is, a plate shift, an earthquake, fire, this or that. Pandemic was the one that PBS, touted for a while. According to the document that I saw, and I have 90% believe that it's pretty true. How accurate is their prediction on it? I have no clue. I can tell you this was discovered recently, and it was leaked, and it is about a coronal mass ejection, which, by the way, the sun just right now is in a grand solar minimum. You need to look that up and what that implies, and then go to the idea of when was the last time we had a grand solar minimum and what actually happened to society and civilization. That's interesting. It's about 600 years. It's going to lead you down a path that would suggest the need for prepping now, immediately. Whether or not it happens, the rubber in your chest, give it in.
We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. It's richardallenmiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. And you can peruse the offerings and you can buy his books right there at Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller. richardallenmiller.com. You're talking about a grand solar minimum. And from my understanding, we may drop global temperatures by 1 degree C or 1 degree Celsius. If we convert that to Fahrenheit, it's roughly 2 degrees as we know it. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, in the summer in our home, if we reduce the temperature via air conditioning in our home from 80 degrees to 78 degrees, 2 degrees, we can feel okay. But when it hits 80 degrees, it's unbearable inside. So we're only talking about 2 degrees. So exactly the delta between 78 and 80 degrees inside the home with air conditioning in the heat of the summer. 80 is kind of tough to bear. 78 is okay. And we're talking about the Earth changing temperature about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that right, Rick?
It's going to be worse than that. It's actually going to be quite worse. There will be, day after tomorrow, the ocean currents need to be rebooted, and the saline part going into the atmosphere is going to require an extreme drop in temperature for a brief period where you may not even be able to be on the surface of the Earth. There will be blood. It'll be just like in the movie, absolutely accurate. The weird part right now is that the sun is currently entered a part of deep space going through a huge bucket of dark matter. And the dark matter is affecting people's behavior and feelings very much like a full moon. It is, you can feel it. And I can't articulate because I don't know what dark matter actually implies, except that metaphorically speaking, using psychology, dark is a reflection of the light. And so there's probably going to be a loss of humor. And you can start watching for it and be mindful because, again, you have the choice. You have encouragements to go one way over another. And dark matter right now, the Earth is being plummeted by it big time right this moment. Dark matter. Look it up. And that's what a grand solar minimum implies. The sun is streaming through space, is no longer absorbing the debris that would protect the Earth like the solar sphere, the outer part of the sun all the way out toward Pluto. It's a big bubble, and it changes with all kinds of gamma rays and other kinds of things, ionized trails, where we had a pole shift at one point, a magnetic pole shift. That meant that the pressure from outside the solar system was greater than that of the sun itself. The sun is streaming through space like a little bullet, and the Earth is trailing behind it in a helix, trying to catch up on it. It's being dragged along. And so what goes around the sun during a solar minimum is right in the path of Earth.
Rick, you mentioned previously that we're looking forward to another Carrington-type event, except worse. When did you say that would happen?
December 12th is what the technical paper from the Navy would suggest.
12/12/18.
Yeah, who knows? I don't understand these things. And, of course, I don't have the original physics to see how they arrived at their calculations. But I'm good enough to recognize when I'm looking at a correct document, it was discovered a few years ago. They've known about it for more than 2 years.
Okay. So we're talking around 30 days from now or less. We should see this event. So,
or something equivalent, that affects the Earth on such a profound level. There may be boundary changes and a large loss of life. That seems to be what the globalists are seeking. Is less people on Earth.
Thanks so much.